What is up, you guys? This is JP, and today we're talking about excessive bulks. So, a lot of you guys out there love to do your bulking and cutting cycles, and specifically for the bulks, I'll not see some discussion about it, but sometimes I'll see people be knocking or dogging the super bulks or the excessive, crazy, dirty bulks that people like to do. And while I definitely agree that you don't want to go too crazy with the bulks because there are some cons to that, I also don't think that it's something that we should just instantly knock without kind of thinking about some of the pros and thinking about how to implement this when and where it's possible to be implemented. And this is kind of like recently in a lot of the videos that I've been uploading, I've been talking about a lot of the gray area thinking, not thinking so black and white. And this is definitely on that same sentiment to be able to kind of help you guys understand that we don't need to think, be so black and white with our thinking. It doesn't need to be this or that. It doesn't need to be good or bad. It doesn't need to be like we only have one option. Like I've mentioned a long time ago, there's very few circumstances where an idea, a training technique should never, ever be implemented. I can't even think of anything that, I can't even think of an exercise or a training technique that we should never implement. That's how much gray area goes into making a program. And I feel like a lot of you who have that black and white thinking, you probably need to take a step back and say, okay, why am I feeling that way towards a specific exercise or training technique? And this definitely goes for bulking a little bit too much. So again, while I don't think that you should go and take this and run with it and gain 100 pounds over your healthy body weight, I also think that we need to be a little bit open-minded into where we can implement gaining a little bit more weight than we'd like to for a bulk, and some of us just like doing that. So right now I'm going to go over some pros and cons of kind of, I don't want to say dirty bulking, but maybe going a little bit excess for our bulking cycles. So first we're going to go over the cons, because these are the more common reasons as to why people kind of talk crap on dirty bulking and why people don't do it in the first place. And why, again, if I were to not advocate for them, and again, in most cases, I would recommend people not do this, but this is where, again, you have to take it case by case, because there are some instances where I might say, oh, the individual probably should dirty bulk a little bit, or why it's okay for them to dirty bulk a little bit. I shouldn't say should, it's more okay for them to do that. So the cons of going absolutely nuts on your bulk, or maybe even, I don't want to say nuts, because it's not like, again, this is black and white talking too. It's not either a little bit of a maintenance and then crazy nuts. You can kind of have a middle ground between maybe you're eating a little bit more than you should, but you're also not going absolutely nuts. But some cons to going more than you should in your bulk. So let's just say you're eating more than you should, way over what a normal bulk would be. The first con is that you might just not like the way that you look. This is a very common issue, and this is what people usually will kind of, dog or talk crap on for people that are dirty bulking, is just, oh, it doesn't look good, or they'll make a comment on YouTube or Instagram saying something about your weight or how you look and you're not looking like a bodybuilder. And again, this is completely subjective to you as an individual, because most people don't want to be they don't want to be overweight, they don't want to be obese. So this is a very common sentiment that most people share. Now, certain individuals might say, oh, I don't care at all about how I look. I don't care if I gain weight. So this is a con, but this might not even be a con for every single individual. But I would put it as a con, because most people, when it comes to looking better or looking worse, most people would like to gain muscle and strength on their bulk without looking like complete crap in the process. The second con to going on a crazy bulk would be, you just have to be careful of your health markers, because this is without a doubt probably one of the more objective reasons for not going absolutely nuts on your bulk, is that you want to gain muscle and you want to gain strength on a bulk, and it's easier to gain muscle and strength on a bulk in most situations. But at the same time, you have to think about things like blood pressure, you have to think about things like resting heart rate, you have to think about things like being able to move your body weight through space. When you go on an absolutely nut bulk and you're having trouble, going from a lying down position to standing up, you know, that's not so good. Your quality of life is going to go down, and that's also important too. You know, you don't want to have labored breathing when you're just sitting there. And this is something that when I used to be on my bad alcoholic binges, I would have labored breathing because I'm eating like crap, I'm drinking all the time, and I'm overweight, I was obese. So that's the second popular con in regards to just going dirty bulks, and something that you have to consider in the long term of things. And this is something too that I guess you could also say is very, it's objective, that you do increase the chances of having a negative health consequences on a bulk. But some people really say, I don't care. That's literally the attitude that they'll take in regards to going nuts on a bulk. The perfect example is look at strongmen. You know, strongman, Eddie Hall, Thor, they'll get to a point where they say, I don't really care about maybe some of the negative health consequences of gaining weight, and they just eat whatever because their main goal is to increase performance. They're just trying to get as big as possible, to get as strong as possible. And if that's you, hey, by all means, have at it. You know, I don't advocate that people do that intentionally, but you know, we all, at least where I'm at, we all have the freedom to do what we want. As long as it's not affecting someone else. And if you choose to take that route for performance, you definitely can. But I would still list that underneath the con section. Now, the last con, which is very important, is when you go too crazy on a bulk, assuming you're gonna go back to a cutting cycle, you have to realize that it's gonna get harder and harder to get back to a good looking physique, or to get back to your ideal weight at the end of your cut if you had a more excessive bulk. So think about it like this. If the ideal weight that you want to be at, or you feel like you look good at the end of your cut, is 175, and let's just say on your bulk you say, F it, I'm gonna go all the way to 250. Let's just say you go absolutely nuts. It's gonna be a lot harder to lose that 75 pounds, obviously, than it would be to if you bulk to 205. Getting from 205 to 175 is really not that hard. But getting from 250 to 175, that's a lot harder, and that's a lot longer of a journey. Most people's cutting cycles aren't gonna be longer than 6 months. They probably even shouldn't be 6 months long, but they're not gonna be longer than 6 months, even if we're counting, you know, most people who are, you know, taking it to the extreme. Now, some people have really long weight loss journeys, but if we're talking about lifters who have bulk and cut cycles are typically not gonna be that long. Now, I don't know about you, but losing 75 pounds naturally, you know, as a natural athlete, is very difficult to do under 6 months. So again, the further you go into a bulk, the deeper you get, the harder it is to be able to get back to the ideal weight that you wanna be at when you start your cut. So those are the three main cons to doing you know, a super crazy bulk, and you have to factor that into you know, the decision you make when you do a bulk, and you have to consider and play around with it so that you don't end up digging yourself in a deep hole and it's too late, you know, when you figure out you have some negative consequences, whether it be with your health or whether it be that you gain too much weight for your cut. But the whole point of this video is to talk about the pros, because there are some pros that people kind of overlook when they're thinking about you know, a crazy bulk that some people might be okay with, or even just going a little bit excessive. So the first pro that I would say is to be able to give yourself a break from counting calories. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm on a cut, I have to count most things, at least I have to count calories, and I have to keep an eye on protein. Now, when I go onto a bulk, the goal is to be able to say, finally, I'm off the cut. Now I can eat a little bit more food. But when I still have counting on top of that, it kind of drives me crazy, and I just get sick of the counting. But when I'm on a bulk, and some people, you know, say, okay, well, you shouldn't go crazy on a bulk, you should just be in a 20% caloric surplus, that still drives me nuts, because then I'm sitting here like, okay, well, I still have to count. I have to make sure I'm within this 20% caloric surplus, and I just get sick of counting overall, that I just say, look, I don't want to count. I just want to be able to eat in a surplus. And because I'm kind of just eyeballing it, for me, I end up going a little bit on excess on certain days. I do. I would say probably half the week, I probably go a little bit more than I would even normally go on a cleaner bulk, or a more slow bulk, or a more steady bulking pace. So again, and this is because it gives me a mental break from counting. So that's the first reason why I would say just saying, okay, you know, to go a little bit more with the bulks is to give yourself a break from counting. Because think about it, if you're not counting and you're on a bulk, chances are you're gonna be going a little bit overboard on the overboard, which is okay. That's not completely, you know, it's not completely a bad thing that you're giving yourself a mental break from being able to, you know, count calories, and just so you don't drive yourself nuts. The second thing was just to be able to enjoy food. Now, this is kind of tied to point one, but I still think it's a little bit different. When I'm counting, I feel like I have certain, you know, certain foods that I have to be careful of because it's taking up too much of the calories for my total calories for the day. If I go back to my example and I say I'm trying to be in a 20% caloric surplus because that's a more slow bulk or a steady bulk, and I want to go get a fast food meal and I want to enjoy this meal because I like this meal, and then I'm looking at my calories on MyFitnessPal or whatever it is you guys count, and you're like, wow, this takes up 70–60% of my calories for the day, and this is only my first meal. And it's like, and I didn't even get the piece of cheesecake that I wanted. And for those of you who are gonna go know, it's vegan cheesecake exists, but I didn't even get that piece of cheesecake that I wanted. That to me is something that I don't want, that unhealthy relationship with food, especially when I'm on a bulk too. So that's an important reason to sit there and say, oh, it's okay to go a little bit overboard on the overboard and not beat yourself up if you do that, because you just want to be able to live life. I don't want to have to sit there and eat food and worry about how many calories I'm doing or whether or not I'm going too much or too little. I just want to enjoy the damn food and just leave myself out of it. And the last point, and this is probably the most important pro of going on a little bit crazy of a bulk, is that it kind of idiot proofs the gains, okay? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know about me is I like the feeling of transforming when I'm on a bulk, because again, that's the fun part about bulking, is that you feel like you're going from someone leaner, tinier to a more beefier, hulkier physique, and your strength goes through the roof. But for me, it kind of also idiot proofs the gains. When I feel like I have a maintenance calories and I eat 20% more than that on a steady bulk, if I'm walking this line of 20% higher, there might be a day or two throughout the week where I just forget to eat, or I'm busy and I don't eat as much as I can. And if I'm sitting here floating at 20%, that might be a day or two where I'm now at maintenance or even lower, which again, it might not hurt your gains in the long run, but in my opinion, I just don't want to leave that up to chance. When I'm on a bulk, I want to reap as many benefits for gains that I can at any point in time. So when I give myself leeway to go a little bit crazier with my bulks, it kind of idiot proofs the gains in the sense that I always know that I'm in a caloric surplus. I always know that I'm getting enough protein. And while you can do this same thing without going a little bit crazy in your bulks, I'm not saying you can't, you definitely can. It just makes it easier for me. I want the idiot proof gains with the nutrition. I don't want to have to sit there and start counting rice grains. And again, there might be a little bit of a false equivalence there, but that's how it feels to me when I'm trying to regularly count. It just feels a little bit too excessive. And I feel like when it comes to just making sure I'm over the top, I'm getting enough, in a small sort of sense, I'm kind of feeling like sticking everything out the wall with nutrition for me and just eating what I like to eat. It idiot proofs the gains for me. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. If you guys like this video, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. For other fitness related content, go to my website.